had to make a case for, you don't usually live in a room with such big giants, as I said, parliament, data journalism, war. You're supposed to make a case for why does arts even matter, So that was a challenge I had to make. And then to pull your picture, to pull your biography, as this is why I do what I do, it scored me a whole lot of cool points. It scored me a whole lot of cool points. And most importantly, it was the way I raised my flag as, this is Ghana, this is Ghana, this is Ghana. And I won't lie to you, on that day, while they were teaching all the other leaderships, everyone was listening to that, the God MC, like, hey, okay, hey. This is what everyone was thinking about, So I want to know to you, what does being Ghanaian mean to you? What does the flag think of being Ghanaian?
Well, thank you for that premise. Being Ghanaian currently is a complicated reality. I do believe we are very fortunate in terms of our history as a country on the continent that we live on, where we are so well positioned with a rich history, as they say. First sub-Saharan African country to be independent, all these accolades that we are given. We are historical in many ways in terms of transatlantic slave trade. We are historically significant when you think about the creative arts, music, high life music. Ghana has been one of the centers. The current popular music that is also buzzing, Afrobeats, Nigerians and Ghanaians have been instrumental. So beginning as a Ghanaian is beginning with a historical significance that's from the land that you're from, with lots of historically significant people such as Kwame Nkrumah. So I think it gives us an advantage identity-wise, right? But then the complicated part about it is it's sometimes feeling like a potential that has not been fully realized. That we have this positioning and this history that is quite interesting and significant, both in terms of individuals and as a national history, even in comparison to the entire continent. But then we don't seem to have realized the potential based on that. So it gets complicated because for me, being a Ghanaian means that we belong to this lineage that has been significant in the continent and the world, but could even be more significant, not for reasons of vanity, but for reasons of how we contribute to humanity. So that's why I say it's complicated, but the work is big and we are all part of it, so yeah.
I want to, stretch this out a little bit. A friend of mine, Kina Likimani, Amata Edu's daughter, said, and this is something I always take from her, that being Ghanaian means being a freedom fighter. And you just explained, what that means, as in we are not just Ghana, what also that meant for the African continent, making Ghana the first independent country, and then to the world, the Black diaspora. What then do you think as our role as freedom fighters because of this? You mentioned the complication. Let's delve a little bit into what that complication is, because I feel like, for me, that complication is Ghanaians themselves don't know themselves, because there was that work that was done to erase parts of our history, but I just want to toss that to you.
Well, I'll challenge your premise. Okay. I love the idea of us being freedom fighters, but that's a very lofty thinking. How many of you think of yourself as freedom fighters? Raise your hand.
Wow.
You are very much in the minority. Not because what you're saying is not potent. So herein lies a little bit of a challenge. How do we see ourselves? So I think me challenging the premise is to say that how we see ourselves in this modern era as individuals and as individuals who are Ghanaians is not, there isn't a collective idea of what being Ghanaian is currently. And I think part of what we are trying to get to with this conversation about, art and our collective future and stuff is that maybe this is a time in which art, music, filmmaking, etc., can really begin to help us define our collective understanding of who we are. Because you said freedom fighter, 90% of the room said, we don't know what you're talking about. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's my answer to that. I do think we have a ways to go in this modern era to really, we can keep our individuality, but to have an understanding of who we are as a collective called Ghanaians. Yeah.
And also, as I said, for me, I raised you, manifest picture, as what it means to be Ghanaian, you know. So I want to ask, since we're on the Legon campus, you know, University of Ghana, I have great memories. I was at the philosophy department. I used to walk there, have great philosophy debates, you know, then walk down to the School of Performing Arts, watch some really good theater. This was what made up my sphere, my memories of Legon. What are your memories of the UG campus of Legon?
You know, I'll begin by saying I have an immediate belonging to this campus for many reasons. I had a belonging to this campus that happened even before I was born.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? It sounds ridiculous, but I'll get to it in a second. My grandfather lived in 3 different houses on campus. My mother was raised on number 5 Lower Hill. My mother went to University Primary, which is a school I also went to. Well, so no, that's after I was born. But my mother went to University Primary. My grandfather composed the University of Ghana anthem.
Woo!
Is it mandatory for you to learn how to sing the anthem?
It is?
Can you sing the first 4 lines? Okay, this is where, the chorus. Is it the more, okay, no, let me not test this. Yeah, so that even before I was born, these ties existed. So there's something very home about Legon for me. And on top of it all, no, on top of it, there's many more connections. So I was speaking about my maternal grandparents. My father, my uncle both taught at the law department here. My auntie, Professor Pebi, taught in the history department. I went to school from nursery for 11 years, my first formal years in the university primary. And so I physically was present here even longer than most of you, because most of you come here for university. That's what, 4 years? 4 years if you don't mess around, right? So there's always been, I've always had these ties even before I was born. Academic ties, intellectual ties, family ties. I've known a lot of people, other families and individuals from here who were either friends with my grandparents or my parents individually. And my presence here in those early formative years of my life, without living on campus but being present through school and all of that, really kind of gave me a certain closeness to it. So I do not feel strange or foreign walking through campus at all, even though I never went to the University of Ghana. So in an interesting way, I've had long-standing ties to the Legon campus that goes beyond my age, yeah.
And that's powerful. Because I feel there's just a general spirit with this place, it's a pioneering place. And I won't lie to you, I came from an international school, and coming here just made me understand the power of what was built before we could come here. So I'm glad, it's great to hear that your journey even started before you came into the world. It's like there's an ushering, that was done before you. You've mentioned family. You've mentioned your grandfather, Prof. Nketia, who wrote the UG National Anthem. You guys know it, right? The lyrics are very, very beautiful. Right? You should. It's very philosophical. And I wanted to know what it was like for you as the grandfather of J.H. Nketia. So this is your... Hey, I said grandfather. Grandson. Hey. Grandson, and this is on your maternal side. And then we have who your father is, the Chachu Chikata, who is a titan of Ghanaian history. What are the key lessons you learned from that? What has the offspring of such greatness, learned from? And what are the challenges of being an offspring of such greatness?
When you put it that way, it sounds like no pressure at all, right? Well, I will I would tell you about the similarities from my point of view first, and then I'll get into a bit of the maybe differences. I think the first great privilege is being on both sides of my family, maternal and paternal. I feel like there are a lot of intellectual juggernauts, you know. So the idea of having a breadth or depth of thinking and interaction in the world was normalized. So, and that is, I think, a powerful thing and a powerful privilege I never take for granted, because when you are not afraid to go deep, to be a critical thinker, when it's assumed that this is what is expected of you, you grow up with a certain kind of sharpness, unless you choose not to, you know. So that.
What does encouraging critical thinking in a child look like? What was it like for you?
Well, number one, you know, I'll tell you this, you know, rest is so my Uncle Kojo, but as far as I remember, for instance, all the conversations I would have with a lot of my uncles and aunties, especially Uncle Kojo in this particular instance, it was never always like, how are you? How is school? You were treated as a thinking person early on, so you could grow into learning how to answer questions or to think about things beyond how are you and how is school. And I think that's important, that people who tend to normalize the idea of being intellectual, which has nothing to do with academia, but actually thinking, I think grow up raising kids in which they can interact with them on points of curiosity, on points of asking questions, allowing certain things to happen. So I think that's what that looks like. So there's that, right? There's the normalization of sort of having breadth and depth. I think also, you know, the other parts that people don't think about is this is an Asante family and this is an Ewe family. So both of which I think really respect cultural norms on both their sides. So, you know, aside from the fact that I'm terrible, I don't speak my dad's language, there is still a recognition of how the different customary things work in different, what seems to be very different sides. So there is a bit of dichotomy, but there are more similarities than people will think about. Of course, the obvious thing that I have to point out, maybe to round off growing up this way, is that it is obvious that one of the bigger differences and one of the most impactful things that coming from the Nketia side didn't raise as many eyebrows, you know, or definitely because of the climate in this country, bearing the name Chikata, obviously, people would preclude who they thought I was or who they think I am. So that is an obvious thing, obviously, because, you know, in a country in which rumor and hearsay has much more value, and I'm being sarcastic, than facts, sometimes I think people tend to enjoy the salacious and the what do you call it, the mythical status, and then sometimes the other negative aspects of it, which is, this is what I believe about you because you're this. But you know, I mean, that is not me complaining. Like I said, the fundamental is me growing up with two different families that have really diligent, smart, hardworking men, women, etc., who have really exposed me to a lot in this life. Yeah.
And I think we hear it in your music. Definitely, we see it in you. We see it in your craft. We see it in everything. I want us to, before we jump into the next, I wanted you to, you know, talk a little bit about the time you spent at your grandfather's feet, in quotes, you know. I think I remember when he passed, you tweeted something, and there was something about you spending a lot of time unraveling, discovering, and I want to know what you unraveled about yourself and what you discovered and how it transformed and created the identity of M.anifest. Because you spent a lot of time with your grandfather, unlike some of us who wait till the last days. You did in spite of, you know. So I want to know how that helped in creating the M.anifest we see today.
Earlier in my life, it was obviously not intentional or subconscious. I mean, most people might not actually know, but I literally grew up in the same house as my grandfather. I was the only grandchild that grew up in the same house with him. So at least half of my life, I was within physical proximity of him. So that means I had a proximity to him. I had a proximity to his cassettes. I had a proximity, which I used to sometimes dub over, by the way, but forgive me. I had a proximity to his books. I had a proximity to the many different visitors from around the world, the interesting people who would come. I had a proximity to his vinyl. That's myself and Blitzen, the ambassador. We used to go through my grandfather's vinyl. Yeah, but I had so very early on, I had a proximity to these things that without anybody telling me to explore, I would explore out of either boredom or curiosity, and that has a way of educating you in a sense, because the man was very vast, whether it came to language, whether it came to music, whether it came to him writing poetry in the 40s, whether it came to him doing translate, a lot of things that he had done. So there were, in my later years, there was a process of discovery of really beginning to understand the breadth of work he had done. You know, the music, the choral work. I think I knew a lot of the art music stuff, but I didn't really have a grasp of how much choral work he had done. And it was really good to uncover and discover a lot of these things, because, you know, I didn't need validation to be a musician, but if anything, people are like, oh, but your people, they're all lawyers. But I'm like, then look at my grandfather.
And anyway. You knew at that time you wanted to be a musician?
Which time?
Age. So let's say around 8, 7, around the time you were living in your grandfather's house.
Not a chance. I mean, that was a terrifying idea at the time, to be a musician. How was anybody going to make money or a living out of being a musician at that age? How was it fathomable? It's impossible. Some of you are sitting here who probably want to do music and it's still unfathomable for you. Don't worry, when I was in college, even the idea was still far-fetched. So, but I'm talking about not becoming a musician as a job. I'm talking about the fact that, yes, I basically got to learn without being in any kind of music school or anything of the sort, but had such proximity to very intimate musical knowledge and other cultural things that you just imbibe them, you know. And if you're curious enough, you take in a lot, even through encounters with people. I remember he would have guests, and one of the things I used to do at one of my favorite jobs was to take them water, you know, on a tray. But that would be a chance for me to ear hustle a little bit of what they are talking about. Yeah, so, yeah.
That must be amazing. That must be amazing. And it just sounds dreamy to be hear the fact that you grew up in this environment. There's this legend. You don't even know that this legend is your grandfather, but you're assimilating all the things that he's creating for the world, and you are in it, right in it. And many years down the line, this is your career path. So I wanted to jump a little forward, much more forward, into, first let's start with UG Primary School, just to wrap this up, and where music, and I guess maybe uni, right? Where you decided that, let me see this grind, you know? It's in there, the blood is there. I think you did the work in the US, when you moved to the US for school. That's why I think you really did start the grind with being an indie musician and learning how things are, and then things became really big for you. So I just want to know that switch. Talk a little bit about that switch. Because I mean, from the family you're coming from, I'm sure they wanted you to be a lawyer, right?
No, nobody had expectations of me I didn't have of myself.
Oh wow, okay.
There was no real switch. I just finished college and I decided I found courage to take a leap of faith. That was it. Yeah.
I like that. Take that leap of faith. So then let's jump into what that leap of faith meant and how it was supported. You spoke about your grandfather. You spoke about growing up in UG. I'm trying to connect this to the first time I was coming to University of Ghana. I applied from A-level, and I applied for theater arts, and my dad was very, very angry. Very angry. Why did you apply for theater arts? I chose English, philosophy, theater arts. And luckily for him, they gave me English, philosophy, psychology. So he was very happy. But then when I came on campus, I still did go to theater arts. I still did take classes. I still, had it on my CV. I did a lot of productions. And now, many years down the line, he will look up your art stuff and ask you questions. So I wanted to know if you wanted to, even shout out any of your teachers in this land, in this space, who encourage your teachers. You've spoken about your grandfather and family, who encourage that, even though they don't say it clearly, but just, Charlie, hey, you're good at what you do. My dad saw me in theater in high school, but when I was coming to Legon, what do you mean applying for theater arts? So I want to know who do you want to shout out in this time?
Well, before I do shout outs, the first part of your question is interesting to me, or how you premised it in terms of your personal experience and sort of maybe our societal, outlook on the arts, right? How many of you are in the arts here in the school? Can you raise your hand? Wow.
One,
very minimal.
3, 4.
How many of you are in the sciences?
1, 2, 3.
How many of you are in the business and those other places?
Arts needs you.
Okay, how about the English, psychology? Okay. This is, it's fairly balanced. It's more balanced than I would have thought. How many of you believe that you're going to work in fields of the study that you're in? Is that over half or is that half? Okay. I'm glad that there's this amount of certainty in this room. I'll tell you that there has been a long-standing, at least since I have been born, there has been a long-standing condescension towards the arts, right? Because we like to be entertained, especially by things like music and things of sort. But in terms of the more intrinsic or bigger value of art is not considered, partly because the commercial viability of it hasn't reached this kind of zenith yet in this country, correct? So for me, I did not go to school in the arts. And part of my education, like you said, was at home. Part of my education in college was around my peers. We used to go record shopping. We used to go through the rigor of learning what we wanted to do by being together and sharing knowledge without having to do, whilst I was getting a degree in economics, because you have to be safe. At the time, I hadn't made a decision. So I definitely know that we have a challenge here when it comes to arts and education in this country, for instance. We know where people face it on an individual level, which is that making those choices and maybe facing opposition and no encouragement. But then there's also an institutional level to it, which is probably my bigger concerns these days as I'm growing older, thinking of institutionally how can the arts thrive and how can young people with such big visionary possibilities become the new, Amwaku Boafos, Ibrahim Mohammeds, Akosua Hansons, and everybody, because I don't think there is enough institutional space or support to help the thriving of talented people who want to be transformational or who just want to be excellent. It has been put too low on the totem pole because we have not really understood the importance. So in terms of arts and education, I think I was giving the example to you guys the other day, so I'll share it with them here. I'm going to give you 2 clusters of names, and then if anybody is able to tell me what binds them, it will be interesting. So Adele, Amy Winehouse, FK Twigs, Noisette, Tom Holland, what do they all have in common?
You know the artists, right? Adele, Amy Winehouse.
Yeah, what do all of these people have in common? Anybody? You can just scream it out. We're in a safe space. What? They're white. That's fair.
Too?
That too. What else? No, I said the Noisettes. The Noisettes, there's somebody in there that's not. What else? What? Entertainment. Okay, cool. Yeah. There's a more nuanced thread between them. Conscious music. I don't know about that, bro. I think Kobe Graham might know what this is. What? He says they are fans of black art and friends with Stormzy. I think he knows the answer, but he doesn't want to say. They all went to one school called the Brit School. Can you imagine? Oh, you knew it. Yo, you said it. Oh, my bad. I'm tripping. Of course you would know. Yeah, when you look in, and then when you look in America, there's other schools like that where Nicki Minaj, Azealia Banks, etc., all went to LaGuardia High School of the Arts. What are examples in Ghana that are anywhere close or familiar or similar?
School of Performing Arts.
Yes, a drop in the pan. Shout out to School of, no, I'm happy. Shout out to School of Performing Arts. But don't you want us to have people from the School of Performing Arts who've gone to that zenith, that level yet? Isn't it possible? And I don't think it's because the individuals who have gone through there have lacked talent, but because when you build strong institutions within and have a vision of what you want to create. And I think when they build some of these schools, they want to make some of the most top-notch, amazing artists ever that comes from their homeland, etc. And they make fertile ground for that. And there's probably scholarships, there's whatever, etc. We can explore these things. So there is, in other parts, there is an intentionality about arts and education that is privileged in a way in which it is not here.
Would you say is an intentionality around higher education in arts? Because I feel like a lot of people will be like, oh, I wanted to be a rapper, I was entertainment prefect, enter P, and then I entered this, you know. But what you're saying sounds like, what is the value of higher education in arts?
I can't speak to that because I never went to higher education in arts. I'm speaking in general about education in arts, right? It could be informal, it could be formal. I cut my teeth partly in those 4 years in the States because I could go to record stores. I was around other people who was just an investor. They had their MPC, etc. So I could be even in an environment that had access to certain things to grow through that.
I think that's higher education to me too.
Of course, yeah. But what I was trying to, I guess, create a difference between the formal and the informal. But different environments have generally different attitudes towards it. I think because, you know, okay, I think of, these 3 C's. I think of commercial success, creative success, and cultural success. That is what most artists can achieve, right? Some people will achieve all of them. But the one that most people privilege is commercial success, correct? But the truth is, creative success and cultural success is just as important, whether it's identity, whether it's, there are people who have created genres. How many of you people know Tony Allen? How many of you people know Fela Kuti? Of course you know Fela, but Tony Allen put the beat in Afrobeat. So maybe you should also know him. But he has such cultural success that it doesn't matter that I didn't see that many hands. And that is just as important, right? And I think we need to nurture environments that realizes that beyond entertainment or the commercial success of ROI of artists is that the arts can have such great value. So Tony Allen plays that role, Fela plays that role, this, that, and the third. And it's an overall lack of volume in terms of, or vacuum in terms of our attitude. So it seeps into academia too. So this is not an attack on the academia, or even though I should attack you, this would be a great opportunity when I have the mic. But it's just really, I think these attitudes have existed, and that's what's one of the things that's lacking. So back to your original question, which is who do I want to shout out? I mean, I definitely want to shout out a lot of the peers that I learned from, and that was part of. We had a peer learning system with music, I learned Pro Tools, I mixed and recorded my first 3 albums myself. I'll call somebody, ask YouTube. I just come out at a time with such stuff on YouTube, etc.
Around what years?
Hey man, don't start giving me those things. But it was in the 2000s for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so for me, that is a big part of my growth, is having a peer system, especially when I was outside of Ghana, that really gave me access to learning about my craft and about technology and about ways of doing.
Okay, that's a great answer. And your answer, you also, highlighted how commercial success at what you do as an artist is also very important. Actually, has been the most privileged. And I'm thinking about the art student who wanted to be a rapper in high school. They came to maybe Legon, and afterwards they just had to enter into a job in banking. There were a lot of my friends who ended up going into banking or because they just couldn't go on. And then there were the artists who went on, but then as you mentioned, the structures are not there to support the stuff that they do. You came as M.anifest, and I feel like there's a magic with M.anifest too, but with the structures of artists in Ghana, they don't feel that supported. They can do all the work, but if the structure, the economy does not also support what they do, they'll just end up just going to get a bank job, save to buy that house, and then pay for their wife and kids or their family or whatever, So I want us to delve into what does the creative industry and supportive structures look for building, a successful creative industry. What are the chain? What is the chain, outside the artist?
Well, I want to answer it in a less technical way, right? So I'll give some specifics, but less technical. I don't want to be like, the technical way would be to say, yeah, we need every region, we need venues that artists can tour, or we need labels that have money to invest in artists, blah, blah. Those are kind of, I say technical because it's, they are obvious in terms of that's the blueprint everywhere. But to think about it maybe in a larger way about how to create an ecosystem that enables and encourages people and then also allows them to thrive, not just those at the top. Currently, the class system in our creative arts is that the reason why people will become bankers is that it's only those who reach a certain tier that can actually make a living from this successfully, just solely. I'm just throwing out a percentage, don't hold me to it, hyperbole. 90% of people in the creative field in Ghana probably have to have another hustle to be able to make a living. It's only those that manage to reach a certain zenith of popularity and are able to do ambassadorial deals, tour the world, etc. The average working class artist in Ghana cannot survive on art alone, and that is quite tragic. But that can be changed. So we have to start looking at it from the perspective. More often than not, we are very much looking at it from the perspective of those at the top. When we talk about GH to the world, we are thinking about all the artists we know for them to go further. We're not thinking about actually the majority of artists for them to actually also get to the point of being able to thrive and be artists and make contributions that will even potentially aid those on the top tier. So that is, for me, is a missing part of the conversation. And so when we start thinking of what do we need for the thing to thrive, I'm not thinking of what we need for those 10 artists that we know or who are popping now. I'm thinking of the scene. If somebody is more on the songwriting side, if somebody is more on the I write plays, I'm not an actor, I write plays. Somebody is more like I'm a script writer, I'm a whatever. Animation, that there is a viability to it where they can commit to it and create with such excellence instead of going to that banking job and to 8, and then between 8 and 12 they try and do some small arts. There's no how are you going to compete with somebody of equal talent somewhere else who has 24, I'm exaggerating again because we sleep during the day, but 24 hours a day to really rise to the level of excellence. How can you compete with Kendrick Lamar when you are busy thinking of how you're going to pay rent? So when we start thinking about infrastructure, we are thinking about both a combination of private, put it this way, institution/private support and state, and as almost behaving like an entrepreneurial state when it comes to art. There's many examples from the past and the current. From our past with Kwame Nkrumah and how he approached the arts and how he made art a political priority. And then there's many examples also in other places of sort of individuals, institutions, or companies I mean, people like to go and give so much to charity, the homes, the etc. If you were to be giving grants to artists, or or creating, doing impact stuff, impact investments, building spaces, scholarships, not everything has to be ROI immediately for it to get to that zenith. The places that are the most capitalist, this is the West, America, UK, etc. They are the places too that you find the most grants and all these arts things. Isn't it incredible that even though they are so capitalist and they are so trying to be about, okay, I've signed you this, there's still another whole infrastructure of supporting other artists that might never be commercially successful, but might have that creative or cultural success that I'm talking about. So there has to be a more holistic look at that spreads the support. Right now, I'm sorry to say it, the majority of your media, I'm not among, the majority of your media, I'm attacking you too. The majority of your media, when they're talking about, especially music and it going next level, are literally talking about about the plight of 10 to 15 artists, period. Yeah. Yeah. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a tragedy and a travesty. That's it.
Oh, facts, right? 100%. So I definitely agree with everything you've said, and I wanted to just push your mind a little. Help us dream into what will the possible solutions be to an ideal situation where all artists, in spite of the five, and usually it's those in music. So not even talking about all those who are writing books or doing animation.
No, but all these can feed each other incredibly.
All these can feed each other.
These cross-disciplinary collabs. I have to shoot videos. I might need a creative director, somebody who's not front-leaning but behind the scenes. All these things feed them. But if I'm getting paid peanuts, me too, I can't afford them. Or I'll tell them that, shall me to this be the level? But I don't get paid peanuts. That's besides.
I'll write my movie script myself.
Yeah. So yeah, I stopped that question partly because I don't want to. I know I'm a musician. This is my primary place of expression or concern. But that is past. At this point in my career, I'm beyond being concerned with just music in terms of the creative arts and that, because I know how the cross-disciplinary collab and how the ecosystem works with it, if it's more than just one genre of art that's succeeding. Currently, one of the most profitable, not for everybody, but I'll put it this way because people are so concerned with commercial success. Currently, I would say if you look at the top 5 most across genres of art, I'm calling it genres, I'm such a musician, most profitable, and I'm not in anybody's pockets, but just from the cost of stuff, I'll say that the fine arts scene with the people at the top of it are killing it globally in a way in which music is not even scratching that surface. Music is quite loud, but these other people, they are also making such cultural and commercial impact that is incredible. So yes, I do not just want to speak about music when it comes to this. To answer your question, or did you finish your question? Okay. I was in thinking through this conversation that we're having. I was at dinner with my cousin, and I was asking her what she's been watching. Actually, my son was asking her what she's been watching. What was the last film she watched? And she was like, she's like, actually, I've been watching a lot of K-drama. You guys know K-drama. I actually need voices to respond to me. I don't know. So the Korean drama, right? So we got into a bit of a rabbit hole conversation about what they call the K-wave or the Korean wave, which you guys are familiar with as well, right? That is K-pop, K-drama, K-everything. Correct? And so then I listened, so she sent me stuff and whatever, and because I tried to got into a rabbit hole of how did this come about? How did Korea become such a big exporter of global culture? How? Right? And so I'm not going to get too much into it, but I'll give you a bit of a gist of what I discovered, which is that none of these things happen overnight, number one. Some of these things have been decades in the making. You know, they went through a couple of traumatic things from in 1905, I think the Japanese colonized them, North Korea invaded in the 60s or 70s, etc. So different leaders will come in, whether military leaders, etc., who, depending on what results they wanted, will use art to implement certain policy, so that either to make people like them or because they wanted their country to have soft power. How many of you people do you know what soft power is? Your voices are so soft, I think you know what soft power is. My goodness. Wow. I might need to turn this into a concert because I'm not used to these soft voices. So there were different reasons in which art got employed. You know, so in one ruler's era, I think they said his policy was 3 S's. Like, what's that? What's going on? 3 S's. They say he had sex, screen, and sports. So that means he created a new baseball league. He definitely created new things in cinema. That was the screen part. You know, he opened the nightlife up, etc. And another leader will come and anyway, all of that to say, they took, I think it was described as an entrepreneurial state approach to the arts, to the point that last year, guess how much the Korean government, not just the private people, just the Korean government, just guess how much they spent on the arts. Just the government, oh, not the private entities. Oh, throw some numbers around. Dollars, not CDs. Come on.
$1 million.
What? 30 million? 100 million? 5 million? Okay, $3.7 billion. Let that sink in. That's why I'm quiet. And we have not even started talking about probably because the amount of private interest in this. This has probably nothing to do with BTS and Squid Game and all those commercially successful things, right? But all that to say, if you go into the rabbit hole like I did about the so-called K-wave, you realize that it didn't happen by accident. There was a lot of intention. There was a lot of institution building. There was a lot of private as in like private sector contribution, and there was a lot of state contribution to make that happen. You know, and then now we are here with Parasite, Squid Game, and all these things.
And BTS. And
we are so fortunate as Africans that as Africans and generally black people, that we have some of these most divine things when it comes to our creativity. We can create out of very little, and then our things go global, etc., despite the lack of support. So imagine if we had even maybe a 10th of some of this intentionality thinking and whatever to help propel this forward. So I am not expecting that we are going to follow even the example of other people who, to be fair, a lot of their stuff is even mimicking other people's stuff, right? We are actually creating and innovating, right? There has been no, okay, watch, I know Ghana Web will do a few things with what I say here, so I have to watch myself. But somebody would have to tell me how institutionally or private sector-wise, in the last 10 years, something as that powerful that transformed the art scene in Ghana, right? The same way I'm saying, like, in the Korea, they took this approach and then they let cinemas be built, etc. It's hard to think of some of it. There's a lot of individual work from artists, from other individuals in the business end. You understand? There's a lot of individual toil. In Christmas time in December, there's a lot of shows because the artists put them on. I have manifestivities. This person has this person has that. That's wild. We are just supposed to be artists, create, cross our legs, and drink some wine. It's not happening. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the hard work, putting it in, but there needs to be a thinking of how to support this beyond. And the reason I'm not getting into the technical, I'm getting into the overall thinking is that there's many ways to do this. People can spend a year on committee to figure a lot of these things out. So I'm not going to come here and do prescriptions. I have ideas. I can be like, oh, why don't we already have a high life museum? Or why don't we have something in place that every year to the top 5 most like bubbling artists, give them access to some funds that maybe can be paid back when they get bigger, so that they're not worried about how to shoot a music video, how to tour and go and promote it. I can give you a bunch of ideas I've thought of already, but it's not that. I think we have to, in general, on the macro level, identify the problem as we are doing this conversation, and think of what is lacking, and then fill in the gaps.
Okay, this is a great exposition you've just laid out, and I just want to bring that reflection from, and it's a great thing you shared about what is happening in Korea. And honestly, I won't lie to you, in YFM there was this producer who brought this whole show on covering K-pop, and that's why I was like, what is K-pop? Like, what do you mean? Like, and now that actually is a big show in YFM.
Well, I mean, just to clarify, before they go and say M.anifest is praising K-pop, I'm not a fan of a lot of that stuff. It's just that I recognize how things work in the world, and when I see things, I'm curious enough to try and investigate a little bit. And in this case, having to have this conversation and a random conversation with my cousin helped me get into a rabbit hole about, this is interesting, yeah.
So I mean, exactly with that. So she is the offspring of the popularity that has been raised around, K-pop. And in the 60s, 70s, 80s, someone can argue that high life was Ghana's export to the world. I'm not sure about the questions that you asked, which I think are very relevant questions we should think about. What was the intentionality? What was the macro intentionality around that, And the mirroring of 60s, 70s, 80s high life to today, 2021, 2022, 2023, where now Afrobeats is the big West African genre in the world. There's like this door that's been open, and also with the government's year of return, beyond the return initiatives, there's been a lot of that talk. What happened in the 60s, 70s, 80s seems like it's opening up again in this time. There's a mirroring. The NBA halftime show, the Breakfast Club, the Grammys. There's a lot of talk with Afrobeats there now. Do you feel that there's that intentionality you mentioned and cohesion in this movement, or this is just individuals doing what they can in a system that's, that doesn't really care?
Yeah. No, it's a great amount of it has been individuals or clusters of people, that make strides, that open doors for other people. But what is happening organically because of individual ambition is that we are finding people at different parts of the supply chain and different parts of the ecosystem. So if you look at record execs, you actually have some African or of African heritage people. When you look at the touring infrastructure, when I went touring, when Bernard goes touring, when King Promise goes touring, it's the same guy, do concepts, that does our thing. He's Nigerian in America. When you look at, when you look at Mavens or Olamide YBNL, I think he's brilliant. Like, look at how many superstars have been created from YBNL. That is through somebody's vision and getting together other people. I don't know his business, but from a distance, and whether investors, etc. Imagine if that was replicated and they were not isolated incidents. So what is happening is that, yes, there is some cohesioning happening, but it's happening because a lot of individual ambition, drive, and the fact that the world is just changing in a way in which I would not be surprised if right now, like, I don't know, whatever biggest station in the US might be trying to poach you from the station here, because the cultural shift is favoring us and you are in the center of it. So you getting that opportunity, yes, you'll be able to open more doors. And it didn't just start now. I think one of the things that we often make a mistake of is just not understanding the historical nature of how many doors have been opened for this to happen. Before I was coming, I tried texting one or two people who have also been practitioners to get their stories. I texted Fuse ODG because I do think the Fuse story is not told enough. And when we are talking about this new thing about Afrobeats and maybe the Ghanaian significance, you cannot forget people like Fuse. You know, because I think he basically told me that, I mean, the first charting of this modern era Afrobeat songs were D'banj, Oliver Twist, and his Antenna. You understand? Now that opens doors because it creates a commercial viability in the label's minds and all these other things. But that's individual success, but other people can capitalize on it. So a lot of it is happening through a lot of toil, sweat, and people building up on other people's things, you know. Somebody, you know, Afrobeats popping is I mean, as much as it being a catch-all phrase, it's tough that it's a catch-all phrase for all popular music coming out of West Africa. It popping has even enabled people like me who primarily are not Afrobeats artists, even though we might make some songs inspired from that, because the world has a palate. Oh no, the world has an appetite, and this palate has refined for our music. We are culturally, literally going to the top of the totem pole in terms of one of the most attractive cultures in the world right now, musically, and in the fine arts too. And that has been done by a couple of, I guess maybe from the late 90s to now, it's been building, but certain significant shifts have been done culturally and commercially by different people, individuals, you know. And yeah, and that has to be acknowledged, but I want amplification and a multiplication and a replication of this in a way in which it can go or beyond on another level. But then you're going to start having other conversations, which is difficult. The fact that, you know, how many people are in Ghana? 30 whatever million. How many are we now? Count, somebody help me. I've lost count. Is it 33 or 2?
What's the population for
Wow, you people don't know. When I used to be in school, I used to know these things from the tip of my whatever tongue. And okay, Google is your friend. Can somebody tell me? 33. Okay, my first guess was right. About how many of those? Imagine we have a data issue and stuff. If I could even get half of those people on streaming platforms, I might not even need the world. That streaming thing would be killing for us, etc. We have so, and that's already an infrastructure problem because data is expensive and where people don't make that much money economic. So there are so many conversations we are fighting against already that if there is no intentionality about support and building institutions and support for the arts, while still fighting these regular bread and butter and other issues, then the arts and the arts ecosystem is constantly in an uphill battle, and we are making strides, but those strides are not multiplied and amplified enough.
And I hear that 100%. I hear that 100%. Because in spite of what the artist does, I've seen the importance of what, you know, the artist fans, of what the country that the artist is coming from, and how they are also pushing the artist or creating the system, definitely for it. For me, it's been a little bit of a bane, you know, to see the Afrobeats genre is big, but I don't like how it erases all the other stuff that does exist with the genre of music that comes from this part. But before, I want us to jump into a little break. And before I jump into that break, it's a music break from you. I wanted to, you know, there's a line you said in that song I want us to listen to, which is driving in a storm, how I feel see ahead. Charlie, the Ghana today, how we fit see ahead. How we fit see ahead.
Exactly. I think this is how I feel like the music comes to me sometimes, because
I fit see ahead, weather forecast a bit nippy ahead. Beggars can't choose but be picky instead. 9 to 5 blues, kick me, I'm dead. Dead.
Can you turn the lights down in the room so we can see?
cross my T's and dot my I's. Stress way day my chest I ostracized. Do I treat you man when I smell the ties? Me and I dream be a yaka, I'm cutting ties. My jalabi a tailor made all customized. My English straight pigeon all bastardized. What I for do? Ignore the bastard guys. I work, they snore, I pass those guys. Thank God it's Friday, of course my mind day. Rise and shine your eye, hustlers wait. All week long we hustle and slave. Trapped in enclaves for wages and pay. Cooking in the morning and short of him day. Weekend so strong helps to shine the weekdays. My B say son, well God be praised. Well these days money be why we pay some way. I bathe in faith, no bathe in apes. A basic case of faith in something great, but still from 6 to 6 with stones and bricks. I'm building a future, I hope I live to see and shit. I barely no sleep, give me some wavy. Boys I pray all week, give me some wavy. Boys I living no be cheap, give me some wavy. But thank God it's Friday, maybe Jimmy did it do some wavy. Maybe I want his foot to give me some wavy. My woman boy, my dog give me some wavy. But thank God it's Friday, maybe Jimmy my gets mini aje. During the week I'm busy, mini adaje. But I still put in work, sick of dachi. I'm even out before the sun sets marching. So it's 5 on Friday, any achi. Make up verbs are quite quick, I'm health is wealth, I give thanks, me dasi. My use my word as might to buy a sassy. Why wouldn't him say, hustle know the nap, hustle know the sleep, hustle know the slack you make wild on the streets, hustle know the vex, no stress about beat, how I be, laziness, lay a week. Dance with the struggle, got a million needs. We've been out in here along like Brazilian weaves. One of weekdays filled without brilliant deeds. Weekends we can enjoy what resilience breeds. I bathe in faith, no base with snakes. A basic case of me and fake know that relates. From 6 to 6 with stones and bricks, build a future risk case, I'm a stone and flicks. I barely no sleep, give me some wavy. Boys I pray all week, give me some wavy. Boys are living over cheap, give me some wavy. But thank God it's Friday, maybe Jimmy did it do some wavy. Maybe I want his foot to give me some wavy. My woman boy, my dog give me some wavy. But thank God it's Friday, maybe Jimmy did sleep. Bug on my embrace, some wavy. Girls are bread, no be boys pay. Some wavy. My UB I'm on my head, some wavy. Thank God it's Friday. Bug on my embrace, some wavy. Girls are bread, no be boys pay. Some wavy. My UB I'm on my head, some wavy. Thank God it's Friday. Let's be have a good one. That's it. Driving in a storm, I can't see shit. All week long, sink or swim, that's it. Staring at the clock, doesn't move, does it tick? Time moves slowest when you need it to be quick. Driving in a storm, how I fit, see ahead. Weather forecast a bit nippy ahead. Beggars can't choose, but be picky instead. 95 blues, kick me, I'm dead. Driving in a storm, how I fit, see ahead. Weather forecast a bit nippy ahead. Beggars can't choose, but be picky instead. 95 blues, kick me, I'm dead. I barely no sleep, give me some wavy. Boys I pray all week, give me some wavy. Boys are living over cheap, give me some wavy. But thank God it's Friday, maybe Jimmy D. Some wavy, give me some wavy. Give me some wavy. Maybe Jimmy D.
Hello. Yep. The economy makes some way be, or more than some way be at this stage, right? I mean, Charlie, things have been crazy. Me, I won't lie to you, I've started feeling from last year, October, when the depreciation happened. Like, my life shifted. Like, I'm on multiple jobs. I have like 4 jobs to survive as I'm sitting here. You know, things are mad. And I wanted to ask you, with this song was also very popular, you know, and I love the video. What is the role of the artist? You know, shifting into the role of the artist. What is the role of the artist in, you know, sounding that bell, making people connect the dots? I asked this also in light of what happened recently with the Nigerian elections. Burna Boy came under huge fire on Twitter. People saying he just, you know, carries the activist vibe as an aesthetic, you know, and does not, you know, actually put his action where his mouth is. And I wanted to know what you thought about it. And in perspective of this, my argument with that is there was this beautiful passage that Chinua Achebe wrote in Anthems of the Savannah, where he was talking about the role of the story, the role of the storyteller. And he said, there are some people who the owner of the world gives the gift to wake people up. You know, like they have that gift to wake you up, let you know, Charlie, the time to get up is now. And then there are some people that have that gift too. When I hear that call, I have that racing energy that's ready to wear my war garb and go to war. There are some people who are, their gift is to play the drum, rouse the warriors. As they are at war, they feel the courage to fight. Then there's those people who don't do anything but wait and watch and document and tell the story. You know, and he flipped this with the whole bushfowl and the farmer. The bushfowl wakes the farmer up in the morning. And the farmer doesn't say, you go to the farm. Why are you waking me up? The farmer knows his role. The bushfowl has woken me up. I'm the one who has to go to the farm to go. In this case, are we trying to force the bushfowl
a round of
to be the
applause
warrior?
for that. I mean, come on now. You don't hear such a powerful analogies and recollections. This is why these educated people, go ahead.
Literature, English departments right here. Right? So I want to know, are we trying to force the bushfowl to be the warrior? You know, what is the role of the artist, in your opinion?
The role of the artist, I mean, I think your analogies and your references capture it beautifully. I like to think in abundance, and I like to think in our different roles. Some people are meant to be healers. Some people are meant to be entertainers. Some people are meant to be agitators. Some people are meant to be some version of soothsayers. Some people are meant to be griots, etc. It's because we lack in abundance of the thriving excellence of an entire scene that we expect those 5-10 people that we know to be everything to us. So that's my first thing, is that there has to be a genuine diversity of artists being themselves that includes just being excellent at what you're supposed to do. There's no part of me that wants to see, when I was a child, wanted to see MC Hammer do a Public Enemy song. MC Hammer had to do the MC Hammer songs. Public Enemy had to do Public Enemy songs. Kendrick Lamar has to do Kendrick Lamar songs. Imagine Adele trying to do Kendrick Lamar, We Gonna Be Alright. When it comes to us, I understand there's a nuance there. When I say us, I'm particularly talking about us as Africans and a lot of the black diaspora. We have such shared struggle and feel such marginalization and oppression sometimes that it is difficult for us to watch our artists who we support so much keep silent. So I understand this nuance to also be true. But in that same respect of differences, I expect that the artist understands it but also plays different role. Not every artist is supposed to be a voice for you outside of their music. They might not even have the capability. They will fumble this thing. One of the things I absolutely do not enjoy is the fact that when most of our artists, when I say most African artists, go on these international media platforms, they are questioning them like all of them are Fela Kuti. Yeah. No, my guy. You don't develop that capability overnight to be able to have a clarity of thought about social issues, your political views, ideology. It is very different from being able to put a song together that's a rallying cry. So I would even encourage people who are around a lot of African artists to protect them in these situations. Tell your people that, when you get there and they're asking you these questions, rephrase it and tell them what it is that you do and your part and roles in these things. Don't let anybody turn you into a historian when you're not. And if you want to be, prepare yourself. Because otherwise, we are just going to undermine ourselves and expect of ourselves. Kendrick Lamar does songs that we're going to be all right. Where George Floyd happened, he's not saying a word because he doesn't talk, right? J. Cole might talk. You know, so we have these pressures we are putting on our artists partly because there's a confusion as to what these roles are. But I understand it too, because from a consumer point of view, I'll be like, guy, right? Like as an artist, you can't be tone deaf. So, for instance, if it's election time and you think the thing that you're going to be posting is you and your boys drinking, nobody is going to hear that, right? So I'm not going to be like, oh, leave that person alone. So there is an artist's responsibility too. But if you want artists to speak for you, learn to uplift the artists that have the capability, because not every artist is supposed to be that. And I actually encourage a lot of artists not to be that unless you are that authentically, because it comes off as fake. It comes off usually very ill-informed. You know, you're going different places telling terrible or false. They're not facts. Being misinforming people about stuff, because even some of these questions are asked with flawed premises. Oh, isn't this? And then you respond to that thing that is already wrong. Yes. So, if you want more artists, but finally, the third point is this. This shows you how many empty spaces there are in our society they have to be filled, that all of a sudden you're expecting artists to be your political leaders. I feel like in Ghana, for instance, activism and community organizing, there isn't a strong culture of it. So when anything is happening, the first people you want to look to for amplification is the artists, because there's such a vacuum across whatever. And so we have to really look at this to understand it in this complex version, which is one, artists have different roles. Two, I understand from the consumer point of view and from our point of view that the situation we find ourselves in, the artist here might have to play more of a role than an artist somewhere else, because we're in this, as we say, we do it together. But then thirdly, we have to see what is missing in our bigger society in terms of people, the vehicles that allow pushback and all these things, so that we are not dependent on the artists to be what they are not. That's it.
Round of applause, man. I think that was great. I'm gonna stop hogging the microphone. We'll open up as we see on radio, the phone lines for you to ask your questions. We have about 15, I'll give you about 15 minutes for this. So if anyone has any question, let's take a first three people. Okay, there's one hand here, right in front, one hand here too as well, one hand here. So 1, 2, 3. Please make sure you get to my woman, or me, dear. If you slack and you mess with my woman, you bore. Let's go.
All right, thank you. My name is Reginald Arthur. I'm a PhD student, and I'm looking at the creative industry, specifically streaming, music streaming. And I kindly want to find out from you, what would you say are the three main things that are critical for commercial value for streaming platforms? And through the research, I realize it's sometimes gets uncomfortable for you artists and those in the industry to answer this question. But I would want to still put it to you.
To answer the question you asked?
The second one, which is coming up.
Oh, okay.
Let's take two.
Now, so...
Oh, one question per person, I beg you. We only have 15 minutes, I beg you.
He's the first, just allow him,
sure.
because
Yeah.
he has such a preamble to this second question. Might as well hear it.
Yeah. What is Nigeria doing different? I knew that was coming. That we are not doing here. Particularly to get the streaming numbers and the popularity. You talk about the commercial value, amplification and all that. What are they doing different that we are not doing?
Okay, so your first question was...
what would you pin it out? Three things that are important for commercial value on streaming platforms.
What do you mean? I don't understand your question. Do you mean how do you stream more? Do you mean how do the streams count more? What are you...
For an artist to create commercial value, to gain that kind of...
As in get more streams.
More streams. To you, a lot of things have come up, but with someone that experienced and all that.
I mean, there's no prescription, because every artist is not the same. You find yourself in different positions, and what will work for Black Sharif might not work for King Promise. So there has to be an understanding of your approach that is quite different. So how streaming works, let's say Spotify, for somebody, for instance, their biggest streaming segment might be user-generated playlists. That means for that artist, it's important that they do those songs that are shared so much that people are consistently putting on. Other people who do, like, if you're a Camido and you do like that kind of sugarcane song, you might be getting more on the editorial playlist action, etc. You know, other people, and Amare is going to be on different playlists. Your approach has to be different because you don't, it's not a one size fits all model. You can maybe look at artists you're similar to and then see maybe where you have an advantage or disadvantage based on where you are, etc. There's an interesting group I really love. My favorite group in Ghana is called Super Jazz Club. Now, there's no way in which Super Jazz Club should be using the rest of these people's strategy to be trying to up their numbers. And they are different, and they can also access spaces that a lot of Ghanaian artists cannot. So once they have that in mind, they're going to stop worrying about being on African hits, African hip hop and all these things, and then start hacking the system a different way. Next thing you know, they'll probably be doing more streams than the average Ghanaian artist. So that's possible. So that's what I'll say for that one. The second question you are saying, once again, is a flawed premise. You think everything is okay in Nigeria. It isn't. You are seeing the successful Nigerian artists and you think everything is okay. There's so many artists there trying to make it, including some who even come to Ghana to make it. But what is happening with them that is making them stream more, you say? Okay, this is the power. Whenever it's Ghana, Nigeria questions, you have to be careful because it's so much out of context. People are so in a hurry to take it out of context. But take what I'm saying in good faith and not out of context, right? Number one, kill the comparisons. Try to learn and think, stop comparing, right? Don't approach your studying of this in a comparative thing because you will not learn much. So that's my first thing. Your approach, and most of our approaches are wrong. It's always, oh, but we, dear, why? But kill that. Number two, you have, once again, like I said, you have to look at what somebody is doing right. Right? Let's be honest. Yo, if you look at just the music that is being made from that country, it's amazing. Right? We have very talented people who make dope music as well. But the number of songs coming out of there every week alone that are banging, and the diversity of artists, right? You have an Ira Star, then you have Thames. You have Asha still prospering. Then you have Asha, like, come on now. So one thing that you are not noticing is how diverse their commercial scene is, right? What do? Oh, M.anifest Day is this, blah, blah. We are afraid of diversity. We feel like it should be one way. So look at sometimes what other people do. So the quality of the music, the consistency of taking it to another level, looking at it like music business, songwriters, blah, blah. Like, yo, you should study how people are producing this thing like, I'm not trying to be the biggest in my country, I'm trying to be the biggest in the world. You understand? There's that urgency. You can feel it when you're in different spaces. So there has to be that too. And the other part is, it's just how you find resources to make things happen, my brother. You get me? This is the part of what this whole conversation has been about.
And also, I feel like the fan support. Sometimes I work in Ghana media. I know how we can be very biting on Ghanaian artists.
Yes, and the media is the most culpable. So yeah, talk to her.
Heavily culpable. I remember there was one time Sarkodie was releasing an album. He went to Nigeria.
Who?
Was the king to a Ghana MC? Anyway, so and in Nigeria they asked him, why is that in your country? Every time I googled you and I'm seeing all these negative things. And I felt so ashamed as a media person because true, even that day there was a big show happening and they started dissing Sarkodie in Ghana. Where our support is also, the loudness of our support is also a big thing. It's what I've realized in media. Let's take our next 3 questions, please. Then we can come to answers. 3 questions. There's a lady here. There's a gentleman here. There's a gentleman here. Then we'll go here, then back there.
You know what you could do? You could actually come to the aisle, maybe.
Okay,
here.
okay.
Like, walk to the aisle, form a line, and, it could be simple.
Yeah. Thank you for
mind.
that. Yeah. So let's start with this person here. Yeah.
If you don't mind standing up, it would be nice to
stand up,
engage. We're having a conversation, so it's not just me you're talking to. Yeah, it would be wonderful.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Michelle, and my first question has to do with...
It has to only be one question, I beg you.
Okay. My question has to do with how we could get our structures and institutions to become more appreciative of the creative arts industry, right from like the first stage when a child grows interested in it. How can we stop our parents from tending to let their children shy away from the creative arts industry and appreciate it and let them see it as far-fetched as you say? How can we get to that stage as a country? Thank you.
Don't answer yes. Let's take two more.
No, I beg you. My capacity is not that high. No,
I was writing it for you. I'm your secretary.
No, let me just handle it. I'll try and be pithy with it.
Okay.
Stopping our parents is a tough job, but it's possible. But beyond our parents, our parents just want to make sure we can make a good living. So the first thing is we have to make sure in our society we can make artists make a good living. It's like football, right? You know, apparently in our parents' generation, how many footballers were making Asamoah and ACNN kind of money? You understand? Right now, Afrobeat is popping. You are seeing Burna Boy, Madison, Whiskey. If there's a proliferation of artists that make it, that are not depending on other things in society to make it, whether it's fraud, and I didn't say anything, or other things to make it, then the parents will have their fears calm. I'm less worried about that micro problem in terms of parents, because what I would say to any individual interested in the artist is your responsibility. If your parents will not say anything to you if you are not going, if you figured out how to make a living from this thing. They might not agree with it till they see something different, right? I never ask permission for what I'm doing. I always just try to make it happen, and it's taken me a long time for it to work, right? Because partly, Mr. Soundman, can you fix that a bit? I'm a bit, if you don't mind. Okay, let me go on. Let me try and ignore it. I'm sorry. I've been working in sound so much. Sometimes I'm just like, I'm a bit distracted by it. It's interrupting my thoughts. Yeah, that's what I have to say. Next question.
Thank you for that. You've asked, not yet. There was a lady here. Let's give to the lady here, and we'll give to this gentleman here in the second row of this place. So he's next. Yes.
Hi, I'm Senna. Happy Independence Day, everyone. My question primarily is, you touched on intentionality, and then you also mentioned how Kwame Nkrumah was very politically intentional when it came to the arts. But for someone that didn't grow up in Ghana, but knows quite a bit about Nkrumah, could you tell me or tell us, what did he do and what can we learn from that?
Okay. You know, the funny thing is, before I came today, I actually sent Professor Collins a text. I wanted him to give me some very concrete examples because it's been fuzzy in my head, and I don't want to pretend like some of the other artists I say where it's like, but I'll tell you that some of the things I know. Number one, that whole idea, and these are my grandfather's words, he made art a political priority. So when you think of people like Ifua Sutherland, J.H. Nketia, etc., these were people who were given privileged positions to mold and make things happen, and were able to be given the resources and stuff to make it happen. You know, so whether Ifua Sutherland being the writer, theater, whatever kind of stuff, make children stuff, etc. You know, so when you make art a political priority, the people that need to create these big visions. I was talking about Ibrahim Ahmad, the artist, who's done that stuff in the north, incredible, the old plains, all that stuff, and built an art institute by his own money and everything. Somebody like that with big visions, or other people like that, should be supported for that to happen. And I think Nkrumah, from what I hear, was doing a bit of that. I think he sent Kobe. Do you know some of these things? I'm sorry I'm pointing to you, but I think there are people like Ibo Taylor and other people who got opportunities to go to London and other things from Nkrumah as well. So he did it both institutionally and individually, right? So whether it's in academia or more like people like my grandfather being given whatever, or the individual also. But I think that's also something that somebody should probably, I hope somebody in this room goes to do research and writes a really comprehensive article of what that history of this famous thing of Nkrumah being the most supportive Ghanaian president towards the arts, what it actually looked like in completion. I can't claim that I know everything. At different points, I have known different bits of information, but currently I can't give you a comprehensive view. But definitely, without doubt, by many credible sources and by many things written and factually, I don't think we can compare any other president to him in terms of support for the creative arts. I'll tell you one story quickly. My grandfather always used to tell me this story about how I think he was in Tanzania or somewhere, and at the time they used to send telegrams or whatever of sorts, right? It's it's telegram. That's what they used to. They didn't have our. We were fancy. And he was somewhere, and then Nkrumah sent him a telegram like he needs to return to Accra immediately. He said, Charlie, he had scoots. Charlie, he wasn't sure what was going on. So he hopped in and came to, Accra. He went to see Nkrumah and, waited with bated breath, unsure whether he had done something wrong or whatever, because Nkrumah, I'm sure, is a very, I don't want to say imposing figure, but he came with such strength. And he goes there, and Nkrumah said, he has this idea of a coffee table book of African folk tales, and he wants him to do it. This is why he was so urgent. And this is something creative. And he thought it was so important, he had let my grandfather leave where he was via telegram to say that, can you do this coffee table book? But anyway, he got overthrown before that was realized. But maybe one day I'll try and do it in honor of both my grandfather and Nkrumah. Let's go.
Okay, so Mike here, and then there was a hand at the back. Whose hand was it?
Now you can take the 2 questions.
Yeah, I'll take 2 questions at a time. Oh, there was someone at the far back. I don't want to miss him. Who was it? It wasn't you. I saw it there. Okay, since they're not owning, I'll come to you next. So please.
I think you should walk towards the aisle here if you want to. It makes it easier for Akosua to identify you. Sitting pretty where you are is nice and all, but we have to, Ghanaians, this is part of our thing, we have to be a bit more, you know what I mean? Anyway, sorry, let me stop micromanaging how this is going to happen. Oh, is he here or here? Where am I? Here.
I am here. Thank you. My name is Derek. Right, and I've been wanting to ask this question for a very long time. It's important you mention it. However, in very relevant spaces, there are conversations about the institutionalization of the creative art industry to imply that there are sort of certain norms that are sidelining lots of people of alternative genre. I find this very relevant because in your craft, you are sort of alternative. You are something out of the ordinary. That's what appeals to lots of people. However, the rapid institutionalization is sidelining lots of people, and I think personally that it's going to be very difficult for people that want to follow in your footsteps to get into mainstream media at this point. What would you think is the way forward? And that's a very dangerous thing, because considering the diversity you mentioned, if you want to grow our creative arts industry in a creative space. Thank you.
Well, in the immortal words of Jay-Z, Hope did that, so hopefully you ain't got to go through that. I disagree with you. Everybody who is different, all our successes and the doors we open makes it easier for the people coming next. And it's already happening. You actually should look around you at some of the artists popping and realize that maybe when they came up at my time, they would have been pariahs just like myself. I firmly believe that if Black Sherif came in those times, they would look at him like, why are you doing this kind of whatever? But he's substantive. Every song is about something. He's not talking about girls shaking bomb. He's always...
He's on Creed 3. He's on Creed 3
You understand?
soundtrack.
So it's already happening. So I disagree with you. I do think there's a space for a lot of dope alternative acts to commercially succeed. It's what it is that it's a longer path, right? Because I can mention a bunch of other artists that generally they have been alternatives. Asha was an alternative artist. She succeeded. Thames, think about it, right?
And in Ghana, Walasi, Amare, Akan.
You understand?
Akan is in Germany
But
right now.
What it is that there has to be a belief, right? And that belief comes with money, like and other things, right? So if somebody believes in that alternative artist to say like, yo, this thing can go another level, the same way Amy Winehouse or the same way, you know, Kendrick or J. Cole, etc., then that thing can be elevated. Because usually when something is dope and alternative, all it needs is that it needs to be heard. Because usually it doesn't get that easy play like the others do. Because the others there, Charlie, plug and play. You mix it in with everybody in your own, Charlie. You go feel boogie to them. So I disagree with you. I think what each of us who have made strides by doing something different have done makes it easier for the next people. And it should enable them on the front look, the front facing stuff. But also in the back facing stuff is that some of us and a lot of us who've done something different are trying to find ways to enable those who are coming beyond words and just opening doors, but actual tangible ways to actually push. And that's also going to be important. Because you can't expect, sometimes you can, but you can't expect, like, let's say, an artist who doesn't love alternative stuff to push an artist who does alternative stuff, right? Or a business person who's not on that point, unless, because they might just be ROI, they don't know how it's going to get to that point. And so, yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic, just to let you know that I am optimistic. I do believe it's much more possible than you think, right? It just needs the right support. And I know I've been using institutions a lot, so it sounds like, this big, esoteric thing. But no, it could be just as simple as
a media station reporting on
yes,
what they're doing.
the little different things that should just function, right? Access to resources, capital. I haven't mentioned it enough. Access to capital for the arts to thrive. I use that 3.7 billion example to show you the kind of numbers we are talking about. So access to capital, capital is what builds this. Capital is what is going to build venues. Capital is what is going to amplify whatever. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, we don't have enough money, so we won't succeed. No, but I'm just trying to say the reality is we are doing so much with so little that imagine that there's a bit more support, capital, infrastructure-wise, etc. Both, or not both. There's actually, it's not a dichotomy. It's not just private and state. I think there's actually way more actors in between as well that also will contribute to it. So I think the wave is coming. It's here, actually.
Thank you for that. So we'll take our last two questions. The gentleman here and the lady right there, the lady in the black. It had to end with a lady.
No, the guy in the locks has he's been around for a long time. Him, right? I saw him walking down. Yeah.
So let's do him in the blue shirt. Let's do her in the black shirt, and we'll end with the man in the striped shirt.
Where's the black shirt?
The black shirt. She's right here. She's standing right here. She's near. Black shirt.
Why doesn't she move down? Why are people?
She's here. She's looking back. Here. Yeah, you. Yeah, you. Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, it's a man. Forgive me. Look at me. What is gender? A social construct.
That means you're a very beautiful man. A round of applause for him.
Forgive me. All right, so let's do. Oh, then we have to end with the lady. I'm sorry. Which lady has a question that wasn't asked? Okay.
Two at a time now. I'll try and get through them. Yeah.
Okay, hello. My name is David Sechi Irenchi. I'm a second year PhD student here at the University of Ghana, and I also doubled as an assistant registrar at the University of Energy and Natural Resources, Sunyani. But I'm in charge of Center for Student Skills and Enhancement. Because of M.anifest and because of this program, I came all the way from Sunyani just this morning. Yeah. So if I have not had any sleep to my eyes, I still feel sleepy because it is so important to me. The reason being is that M.anifest, if you go through the Ghana Living Standard statistics, it's been for almost 3 years now, and it has repetitively, becoming as a statistics that the current generation and crop of students and graduates who churn out from the university, about 71% of them find themselves in the informal sector. It means that it's not about the course they came to study. It's about the survival of the fittest. And so because of that, I think from where I'm coming from, we have designed something, a center called Center for Student Skills Enhancement, so that we can now look beyond the theory and also try to nurture the skills and the employability skills of the students. So as it stands now, by our research, we've got.
You can use this.
Thank you. There are a lot of these students who are having exceptional talents. And then I think that from what you are doing, in fact, to be honest with you, some of us, we came here to even come and then solicit you so that we take you to Sunyani. Yes, because we have tried to also assemble students, in fact, those who have the flair, the passion for.
Is it working now? Okay.
I beg you, please shorten it for me. Let's wrap up with a question.
And so, please, we want those of you already in the creative art industry to partner with the institutions, so that if possibly there can be a proposal or an MOU, so that from time to time, this time around, it's not just only about talking to us as a symposium like this, but you will take part of it as stakeholders, where you would nurture students with talents. And in fact, we really need you, so that at the end of the day, since now about 70% of these graduates who studied chemistry and physics are now going into the field to have their own job, then it means that if they should focus on their field of talent, then it will serve them, and then the country as a large would also make a mark for our country. So this is my recommendation. So after, I would like to see you personally.
Thank you.
So
Okay,
much.
so then we'll save your own. We'll answer that one. Please, can I have the man in the striped shirts behind you? And then the last person was right. Hey, also striped. Right here. So let's do here. Then, hey, actually, him, then here.
All right.
Actually, you were supposed to be a woman, oh. I said the woman will be the last. Oh, no. Do you identify as a woman? Don't joke with it, oh. Gender is a very serious issue. So if you don't identify as a woman, manifest is here after we can have, I beg. So we'll have you in the black shirt as the last. Let's go.
Okay. My name is John Abotol, a level 400 student from the Department of Psychology. I'd like to ask, actually my questions are two. The first one, I'll keep it short and simple, I promise you. All right, okay. All right. I would like to know, like, what keeps you going in terms of consistency? Because you started with many artists and they have what? Departed, they are gone. You don't see them or hear them anymore. But for you, you keep on going. So I'm also a bit, into rapping and all of that. Okay, freestyle.
What's your rap name? You know.
Okay. I'm called Scientist.
Scientist, that's what's up.
Okay, tie. Madani Opanka, or Jemeso Pempren, and Macho Banka, tie. Esa mokwana na wonti ase kweneke bisa wona na hwe media hia penti magisaka ofunda kanya hwe just by munawa okafo odidi na so tua alawa so me yame yo na temuda wanya wo yewa abelo wa beti baby wa hya nka wa ababa wa wogi ahya wa ye nka wa.
Give it up for the scientist. All right, last question, man in the black shirt.
Hello. Yes, I'm a guy, please.
Forgive me, please.
So my name is Elomeke LKD. I did engineering and I'm currently at the School of Communication Studies doing communication studies, masters. My question: you mentioned the 3 C's of success in of an artist: the commercial, cultural, and creative. Could you please elaborate on the creative? Because my understanding was that maybe there's a limit of creativity called success, and maybe there's a cap to creativity. So yeah, please elaborate on that.
I haven't fully fleshed the concept. I mean, I might have just come up with it, but let me just tell you what I meant. Being able to, like, the peak of creative success is being like creating a new genre. I think Afrobeat, not beats, that is creative success. Like creating a new genre. And I think that's why I mentioned Tony Allen in respect to, well, I mentioned culture. But that for me is the height of that, innovating. And not everybody who has creative success benefits from it, because other people steal the style and make more money. The creators and innovators are not always the most successful. Sometimes it's the marketers, right? So that's what I mean by creative success. You are there as an artist, you put in all your many hours, you're coming out with this, then one day you stumble upon this crazy flow, like the Migos flow, like the triple, these things are creative success, as far as I'm concerned. And there are some artists who are really good at that. And it doesn't mean it will always translate into even a cultural moment for them, because somebody else might have that cultural moment, right? So Brafo Paimuka is a cultural moment. Like he has cultural success. It changed the landscape here. Creative success is like that part. But but I want to even speak. I want to use an example of someone who maybe has, I would say Akan, right? He puts together projects that I feel like he has some creative success because he has a good idea that he cracks a certain code. So he's put together an album, Could You Q, Do For My Brothers. I'm like, that's creative success. And that is an important thing to achieve. I would love for everybody who innovates and gets to that zenith creatively to have commercial and cultural success, but unfortunately, that's not how it always happens.
Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm also a poet, and
you're also a poet.
Just putting myself out there.
Okay, so yeah, but thank you. And you're also a poet who does engineering or what? What? Okay, cool. What keeps me going and consistency? I've said this thing quite a lot of times, and I'm going to change my tone a little bit. I always tell people about how this lofty thing of I'm purpose-driven, etc., and that's why I'm whatever. That is true to a certain extent. But I have also been very certain of the growth trajectory needing to be this way. So I do so much to ensure that it is that way for me. Because the day it starts coming this way is the day I leave this thing. I'm not interested in a decline. I'm interested in exiting on my own terms. I think we are vast as human beings. We have infinite possibilities. And when you're blessed to have this creative journey, be devoted to it, and then be able to make an impact in the world and leave legacies, you are fortunate. So the consistency is because I want longevity. The consistency is because I think I put in the work. The consistency is like, as you can see, I can obsess over finding out about things, and that is, for me, has been important in terms of growth. I get to know of a lot of new things before they pop up, and I'm never caught. And finally, I think the consistency comes because I spend so much time trying to create what is unique to me that it is not so reliant on the trend, right? Because if I had to be reliant on the trend, I would fall off, because I'm just not the guy that people love for the trend. It's great to be an art. I want ultimately to be like a Sade or Franco. When you mention these people are less concerned with their genres, or what they just have something about what they do that is like specific. And I think that's the kind of path I've tried to walk, and try to do as much work so that it can be consistent. The stuff has to be dope, and then all the work in the background has to be put to it. So I'm looking for maybe another 20 years of consistency and I retire. Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. The question before that, they said they'll meet you personally. So I want to end this whole conversation with this question, right?
Okay, before that, let me just say something to that guy real quickly. I hear you, and I think you should definitely advocate whatever. I am, and I'm glad you gave us those facts. I am most concerned with the creative ecosystem and the young people who are most trying to succeed in that, and how they can capacity build to be able to do that. So more power to you. Maybe we'll meet somewhere. But I support what you're doing, but I think my concern is more now a bit more different. My more immediate things on this is what I want to obsess and over. It's a little different from yours, but it's okay. We're all trying to do God's work. Or
Thank you very much for that. I wanted to add that what I've seen from the outside as what supports your consistency is who I've seen around you in your day ones are the same people I'm seeing today. And I've seen in my journey in media how we can lose friends. We can lose people you trusted and I want to give you a lot of, and people start to see as a commodity or someone they can use. And Fui has always been there. Huge shouts to Fui, man. Like, does the work, and I think that that's something that an artist who has that, and all the artists I've seen in this ecosystem who have that, have someone who is there, who's been there since the day one. So I just wanted to draw that for people who are thinking about that. It's very important. My final question to you, today is our 66th birthday, I want you to end this conversation with ramping us up, put us in a rampage. What does freedom mean to you? What does freedom in your personal life mean? What does freedom mean to building a creative industry that is as viable as a football and as all the other things we want to do? What does freedom mean in the reflection in our lives? Should it just be for the 1% or for all of us? Because people died for this. People died. There was blood that was shed. We all watched 28 The Crossroads. Blood was shed for us to be here today. But the freedom always sits with a specific group of people, but not the masses. So I want to know, what does freedom mean to manifest?
Wow.
Who manifests?
Well, before I have words, 14 years ago, I wrote a song called Ghana 52 on Ghana's 52nd birthday. And my first few lines tried to talk about what freedom means to me. Somebody asked me what it means to be free. Today, Ghana's a year away from 53, and that's 50 deuce and a noose in my country. My see us celebrate like Easter and palm trees, but still I ask, what does it mean to be free? A nation plundered by pillage and gross thievery. Not born in 57, but picture the scenery. In Kuma on the podium declaring we are free. The Brits sip tea, the Americans eat cheese, the Rastas blow trees, and Africans on our knees, begging for the crumbs and medicine for disease. Depend on destiny, charity, and good deeds. Many decades later, we loving the hair grease. Our sisters hate their skin, but loving the skin bleach. Some of us flee to see what's overseas, but success is a stripper on the pole, just a tease. Maybe I'm expecting like Nas and Khalees, a new birth, a new earth for me to breathe. Nigga, please wake from your fantasy. Our development arrested, so I sing Tennessee. But please, don't confuse these views, just believe. The land of the cheetahs, zebras, and beasts. Some leaders are ruthless and cheaters indeed. Knock on heaven's door, who holds the keys? Presidents give themselves awards like the Grammys. With friends like these, who needs enemies? But still, we celebrate. Call to the ancestors, hear them say, you're the light of my heart. Shine through the dark, even though we are apart. You must be strong. Long road to freedom, but until we get there, sing this song in hopes that we get there. Oh, say yeah, 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 oh, say yeah. Thank you, that's it.
Round of applause. Manifest, manifest, manifest. Round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much, Manifest. I feel like this was a great conversation to have on Independence Day. Thank you to UG. 75th anniversary, Charlie. We are proud of ourselves, right? We are proud of what's been built for us before we came here, right? Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Round of applause. So on behalf of the University of Ghana, the 75th Anniversary Planning Committee, would like to say a big thank you to you, Manifest. We know you are busy. We started these conversations when you were away. We thank you, Akosua, for moderating this so brilliantly. Don't go yet. I would like to kindly call our chairperson of the 75th Anniversary Planning Committee, Professor Akosua Ampofu, to do a special presentation to Manifest on our behalf.
Rewind. Okay, so we're really grateful. There isn't. Yes, yeah, that's it.
Is that speech or no speech?
We're very grateful.